If I'm making 60 and she's making 50 and we're raising a family and she thinks it's appropriate to not tell me or share any of the 50 because she wants to be feminine, sorry, but that's not a feminine attribute. Okay, that's called selfish. That's hashtag selfish. So as we scroll YouTube these days, if you find any red pill content, there are on occasion videos put out by men that might make you give it the side eye glance, say, this seems a bit harsh, it seems a bit much. And same thing goes for the women that are making content that is for the other women. Now this YouTube channel is called All Things Woman, and she is presenting herself as well, is hashtag feminine in the video. She's presenting herself as a woman who is going to be feminine for a masculine man. And I'll be honest, I've watched this thing 3 times and I've gotten varying degrees of understanding, frustration, and aggravation. So I'm curious to hear what you all think. Now, the video is talking about the 3 things that you should stop going into detail with your man. Now, I'm only going to go over number 1. The other 2 were viable, but this one just got to me because I think there's a lot of layers to what she's about to say here. So I'm going to play the clip. Again, keep in mind she is presenting herself as not just as feminine, but as a woman of God. She even uses a Bible verse in her comments to justify what she's about to say here.
3 things you absolutely do not share with a man in detail. Number 1, your financial status. Whether you are married, engaged, or dating, your husband, your boyfriend, your significant other does not need to know exactly how much you make or how much income you have coming in each week or each month. If you constantly brag about how much money you have, you put yourself in a position for them to say to you, you got it. And even if the man is masculine and takes joy in taking care of you, if you are constantly bragging about how successful you are in your business, he will look at you as if, what do you need me for? You got it. You're making all this money. You just told me you got bonuses. You just told me you're climbing the corporate ladder. You're starting 5 businesses. What do you need me for? You don't want to discuss too much of your financial business with a man because you always want to be in a position to receive.
Now, I know some of you might already be screaming, wait, if you're married, what about the taxes? That was the first thing I thought about. But in a comment that she put in the video after she must have gotten some criticism, she did mention about how, well, when you're married with taxes, it might be a little bit different. So in her defense, she did, after the fact, realize that, yeah, when you're married, taxes are going to be a problem. I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, and I still am. I cannot figure out if she is being very, very innocent and naive, or if she's purposefully trying to use the feminine movement as a way to further emasculate her man. And what kind of swayed me one way or the other was what she's about to say here.
You don't ever want that man to think that you do not need his financial support, even if you don't. As feminine women, we are about living a more softer, carefree, stress-free, or stressless life. You can't have a stressless life if you are worried about money. And if you constantly complain or constantly brag about having so much money, you're going to be in the position where now you're going to have to spend your money on things that you didn't have to spend it on because you've been telling him that you got it. I know my husband is proud of me because he says that you're doing a lot. You're very talented. He tells me those kind of things all the time. And I appreciate that because he just sees how I move. But not once has a dollar figure been attached to what I say and what I do. I just flow. And as a feminine woman, you have to learn how to just flow. You might be very proud of your accomplishments, and there's nothing wrong with telling your man, oh, I started this business. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm talking about going into detail as far as financial figures. He don't need to know all that. As far as he knows, that's just your little hobby. Even if you're making six figures in your little hobby, make sure you never give him the impression that you're doing so well that you don't need him financially. Okay?
Now, look, it's one thing if you want to say you don't want to tell your boyfriend about your business. Okay. You want to tell how long you've been dating a guy, 6 months, a year, he doesn't know how much money you make. All right. All right. No problem. But if you're married and you're making six figures and you think it's appropriate to not tell your husband, you must have one of the 1%. Now, if your husband is making millions of dollars a year, if your husband is an athlete or an entertainer making millions of dollars a year, and you're making 120, right? Okay, I could see where you would not bring up to him how much money that you're making because it ain't gonna make any difference to him. If you're married to an average normal guy who's making an average normal salary, especially if you're raising kids, if this guy's busting his ass 70, 60, 70 hours a week for 70 grand, and you just happen to be making 120 doing whatever it is that you're doing, and you think it's appropriate to not tell him, number one, you're gonna have a problem come tax time. Okay, I mean, you're gonna have a problem. I don't know what to tell you there. When you're married, it's a completely different situation. Now, in terms of how she's portraying this, the hashtag feminine thing, this is where I'm really curious because, as far as to what you all think, because I can only imagine that it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I can only imagine that each man would have his different opinions here. Again, if I'm rich, if I'm making 10 million and I meet a woman and we get married and she's making 75,000, I don't need to know about that. That part is true. But if I'm making 60 and she's making 50 and we're raising a family and she thinks it's appropriate to not tell me or share any of the 50 because she wants to be feminine, sorry, but that's not a feminine attribute. Okay, that's called selfish. That's hashtag selfish at that point. So I'm very curious to hear what you all got from what she said, because to me, I watched it 3 times and I'm trying, and maybe this is my own personal flaw, I'm trying to watch it and give her the benefit of the doubt and convince myself that she really does believe that it is going to emasculate the man to tell him how much money she's making. And to use the Bible verse, as she put it, I'm going to read it here. How did she put this? She says, I'm going to read the entire comment. She says, keywords being in detail. Marriage is a little different when it comes to finances because at tax time, you must discuss figures. Other than that, a masculine husband isn't typically in the pocket of his wife. Most masculine men aren't that concerned with the income of their woman. They don't need it. It's not pertinent to their survival. And then she puts she's leaving a Bible verse, but she puts it in a condescending manner. She says, in parentheses, for the confused, Timothy 5:8, but if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So she's trying to say that somehow, if at my $75,000, if I need a little bit of extra from my wife who's making 60, so that we can do a renovation, do something nice for the kids, take a vacation, that somehow I'm less than in the eyes of God. No, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that definitely, most assuredly, is not the way that it works. So she presents it well. She does present the argument well, but you can listen to some of the verbiage that she's using. Okay, talking about how the woman needs to be in the position to receive at all times. Now, I understand the trickery of that language in terms of trying to portray it as a feminine trait, but in the reality of the situation, unless your man is a multimillionaire and making huge bank, that's called selfish. Now, that's my opinion. Definitely interested to hear what you all hear. I know there's a whole range, there's a whole spectrum of red pill and all of that noise. Generally speaking, I think for the average man, Is he going to ask his wife for, hey, do you got the rent? Do you got the electric bill? No. Okay. But at the same point, if your man is busting his ass and, well, we can't afford to go on this trip, or I can't afford, 2 out dinners a week and everything like that, and you're complaining to him that he can't afford those extra niceties while you're also making the same amount or even more than him and not offering to pay, it's a problem. It's a problem. And if you want to differentiate between boyfriend and husband, if you want to go that route, fine. But she's specifically talking about withholding from your husband, even if you're making 6 figures. And that, in my opinion, that's just all sorts of wrong.